Today we are facing some of the greatest challenges of our lives, from our health to political unrest, the environment, financial uncertainty, and the nation's racial divide. Welcome to Bill Myers Inspires. My idea for this show was to invite guests and get the conversation started, to take a deep dive into the issues that impact our world with an eye to exploring solutions. And we encourage our listeners to look within themselves to take decisive action to make a positive difference.
Welcome to Bill Myers Inspires. I am your host, Bill Myers. Today, I decided not to have a guest, so this is my maiden voyage solo, and appropriately so, because I want to share with you that there was something out of the blue that hit me, I'd say Wednesday afternoon. And I had never experienced it before. And it was a feeling of lost, a complete depletion of all energy, all thought. There was no particular thing that I could identify which brought me to this place of lost, exhausted, a very strange place. Like I said, I have never experienced that before. I've experienced a lot of things, and I thought, what better way to address this and share this with you so that, number one, you can understand that in the midst of all these kinds of conversations, as we talk about race and what is going on in the United States, we have tremendous political unrest that is upon us. We have financial uncertainty. We have and the racial divide, which has affected not only the United States, but has affected the relationship of black people in many countries all over the world. And so I wanted to talk about this today, and the thing that I want to talk about is it's about silence. Now, this simple word, silence, is not as simple as it seems. In fact, silence can mean many things and have even more implications. Is it healthy or is it harmful? Is it helpful or is it hurtful? Silence can be every one of those things and so much more. So as I found myself in this space of silence, I thought, what better way for me to share with you, and we can explore together the various meanings and explore this very complex word, silence. First, I would like to start with a little sort of myth-busting out of the gate. The one thing that came to me as I thought, well, how do we approach this and how do we talk about silences, is the quote stuck in my head, silence is golden. Silence is golden. So I decided to do a little research and find out what the origin of that was. What did that really mean? What was that referring to? And so I did my thing. So while I don't have any guests in the studio, I do have plenty of authorities that I am going to cite today, and I hope you just bear with me because this is something that I am learning as we speak. So I am learning along with you, and as we journey together. So silence is golden. I found an article about this on literarydevices.com, which is definition and examples of literary terms. And so the origin of this, silence is golden, like many other phrases, the origin of this phrase also lies in the midst of time. It is reported that it has links with some other versions of the proverb, dating back to Egyptian history. However, its first example in English was its use by Thomas Carlyle, a poet who translated it from German to English in his novel, The Tailor Retailored. In the novel, it reads, "Speech is silver, silence is golden." Or, as I might rather express it, speech is of time, silence is of eternity. One of the characters speaks these lines by which he means that discretion could be more important than eloquence. Meaning, the meaning of this phrase is that silence needs authority of mind and a specific type of power. To keep silent is not easier than expressing anger, love, happiness, and betrayal with words. This phrase is the part of the proverb, "Speech is silver, silence is golden." We use it in such circumstances where it is considered that silence is preferable to speaking. Now, just like gold, in a right time and place, silence lends grandeur and charm to human lives. It is like an ornament which is enduring and has unparalleled beauty. Usage. These days, the fuller version of this phrase, "Speech is silver, silence is golden," is frequently used, though the shorter form, "silence is golden," is more common. For instance, lovers prefer to speak in silence, as it is more romantic and famous way of telepathy between those who are sharing strong and powerful feelings of love. Sometimes silence can play a great role, like huge wars were stopped due to just a few words, avoiding unnecessary words that might have hurt others. Similarly, two close friends meet after a long time. They could say many things, sharing complaints, secrets, questions, and much more. However, the first thing they often share is silence. Thus, it justifies that speech is less significant than silence, as it lets us know about our inner selves. The literary source for this phrase is used by Thomas Carlyle in his novel, where he tells about virtues and of silence. It goes on as, "Silence is the element which brings great fashion themselves together into the daylight of life. Speech, too, is great, but not the greatest. As the Swiss inscription says, speech is silver, silence is golden." Or I might rather express it as speech is of time and silence is of eternity. When we are silent and waiting, something great inside us keeps on growing, and silence gives birth to creativity. Moreover, the more we keep ourselves silent, the less our hearts will be hurt. In the past, silence would be a great way of communication and more effective than speaking. For instance, often a silent but angry look from our parents is enough to communicate their disapproval or fury. And it can make us behave in a much better way than harsh words and scolding would do. It simply tells us that when we remain silent and wait, something great keeps us from growing and gives us creativity. So I thought I would start with sort of visiting this interesting sort of cliched statement that we hear most often. And so as I continued to explore what are all the other manifestations of silence and how does it show up. And I found myself thinking about the group Simon and Garfunkel and a very famous song that Paul Simon wrote entitled "The Sound of Silence." And he wrote, "Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone. 'Neath the halo of a street lamp, I turned my collar to the cold and damp. When my eyes were stabbed by the flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more, people talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs that voices never share, and no one dared disturb the sound of silence. Fools, said I, you don't know, silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my arms that I might reach you. But my words like silent raindrops fell and echoed in the wells of silence. And the people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made. And the sign flashed out its warning in the words it was forming. And the sign said, the words of the prophets are written on the subway walls and tenement halls and whispered in the sounds of silence. You know, I don't want to insult anyone with reading these lyrics, but if you're like me, I've heard that song my entire life, and I must say, I can hum along with it, but I actually didn't know all of those lyrics. So I thought it would be a good moment to revisit those and familiarize myself with some of those lines that I had never quite known, but certainly I recognize the melody of that song, and the power of those words seem to deepen all the more the beautiful melody and the beautiful song that sold millions and millions of copies, called The Sound of Silence. Silence. I'm going to take a break right now, and we will be back in just a moment as we continue to explore the topic of silence. You're listening to Bill Myers Inspires right here on the Inspired Choices Network. We'll be right back.
Today, we are facing some of the greatest challenges of our lives, from our health to political unrest, the environment, financial uncertainty, and the nation's racial divide. Tune in every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Bill Myers Inspires, as he and his guests take a deep dive into the issues that impact our world with an eye to exploring solutions. Emmy Award-winning actor Bill Myers is an accomplished actor, jazz musician, filmmaker, writer, educator, and speaker. As a biracial man who's both black and white, Bill leverages his background, talent, and voice through creativity, compassion, and connection as activism for social justice to focus on uniting the divide and compelling change. Bill Myers Inspires encourages listeners to look within themselves and take decisive action to make a positive difference. For more information, visit his website, BillMyersInspires.com, and sign in for the latest news and updates.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
You're listening to Bill Myers Inspires here on the Inspired Choices Network. We're here every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for joining us. And now, let's get back to the conversation.
Thank you for being with us today. This is Bill Myers Inspires, and I'm your host, Bill Myers. And we are talking about silence. Silence. Just before break, I had gone through the lyrics of Paul Simon's song, The Sound of Silence, as I am trying to discover, along with you, the meaning of this word, silence. And there's this wonderful article that I came across that was from a physician, Alan Tasman, and it reminds me of how art and creativity can inform life itself, and how even a doctor can draw wisdom from the words of an artist and bring understanding into his scientific community and his understanding of human nature. Dr. Tasman writes, learning to listen, understanding the importance of what we hear, and knowing we must understand before we speak or act, are among the psychiatrist's most important skills. In the song Sound of Silence, written when he was 21, Paul Simon reveals a complex view of silence. The first stanza with the first line, "Hello, darkness, my old friend," seems to express the value of being in a meditative or reflective state. Alternatively, my psychoanalytic self sees in those lines an allusion to the work done by the unconscious during sleep and dreaming. Later, though, he describes the isolation, sense of emptiness, the anomie, when alone and unheard, looking for a moral compass in a harsh society. Clearly, as with any well-written poem, there are many layers of meaning if we silently reflect on Simon's words. The world, and especially our country, has been so much noisier in the last few months than I can remember since the 1960s. And it's often been hard to think, much less to reflect. Too much of the current public speech and noise, as was often the case in the 1960s, seems to reverberate more within an echo chamber than between people or groups. And there sure doesn't seem to be a lot of folk listening or reflecting going on in some important quarters. As a person and as a psychiatrist as well, I, like many others, bemoan this state of affairs. And I also, as a psychotherapist, know the value of silence in helping one to reflect and understand. I've recently had a return to an earlier career role as the director of a third-year medical student psychiatric clerkship, and I'm happy that I've had the chance to talk with them about the value of listening empathetically, something they rarely hear from any other specialties. This mode of understanding, as we know well, often means listening attentively, but silently. We know that when we listen empathetically, we learn things about our patients, or anyone else for that matter, and that we may otherwise never have discovered it. The seeds of understanding that are planted in our brains during psychotherapy grow as we quietly reflect into a much richer and complex vision of the person rather than the illness we are treating. Learning to listen without speaking, understanding the importance of what we hear, and knowing that we must understand before we speak or act are among the psychiatrist's most important skills. Although we spend our entire careers honing these abilities, we know the effort is worth it because the more we do it, the better we become in carrying out this difficult set of tasks. It has been gratifying to have had a number of students begin to experience for themselves how important these listening and reflecting skills are, both for the doctor and the patient. One of our third-year students in an end of clerkship essay wrote, quote, "When a patient is in the hospital, there are so many people coming in and out of the room, checking on the patient's lungs, heart, GI system, nervous system, but no one checks on the patient as a whole." And that's where psychiatry comes in. I learned the value of simply entering a room, listening to a patient, letting him talk. It was astounding the difference this made in my patient. I found it so rewarding to be that person. This is an uncommon phenomenon as a doctor. Even if I choose to go another path in psychiatry, I will always carry this lesson with me: to take the time to listen to the patient and treat not only the physical being, but the self as a whole. I celebrate that as professionals playing such an important role in the welfare of those who have placed their trust in us. We place our highest value in truly listening and understanding before acting. I wish and hope that those in all spheres of life who are entrusted with the welfare of others learn to do the same. You see, the more I looked at this silence and did my Google search, I discovered more and more of those complexities. And again, I was astounded because I had never taken a moment to really look at this. I know that for myself, as a person who has coached people and a person who is a minister and walks through very difficult moments in individuals' lives and companions them through those difficult moments, I do understand the importance of listening, which is slightly different. It's connected. It's a kissing cousin, but I had not really connected the depth of silence necessarily with listening. And so I really wanted to explore that and to understand that. And so now we're talking about some of the good things as it relates to listening and all of that. But I want to talk about the other side of another meaning of the term silence. And I want to kind of cross the moat to the other end of the spectrum, where silence may or may not be our friend. And so I came across this article on themighty.com that describes the three types of silence that depression can bring. Depression brings it with so much silence, and it drowns out everything else. First, there is the silence around me as I seclude myself. My depression takes my energy to get up. It tells me no one wants me around. So there I sit, alone, in silence while my mind is screaming at me. Every insult I can think about myself being hurled at me as fast as I can think of them. Everything I have ever done wrong flashing in my mind, so fresh, just like it happened yesterday. That silence is slowly driving me further into the abyss that is depression. Second, there is the silence of the world around me as it continues to go on like nothing is happening. The world around me is falling into a million pieces, and yet it goes on like normal for everyone else. I don't expect the world to stop for me, but it becomes unbearable watching everyone move on with their lives as I sit there stuck in this depression. The silence grows. My mind becomes even more active with self-loathing. Last, there is the silence of those closest to me, the ones I love and care about. That silence is the loudest. Even before my mental illness is known to others, when they start to drift away, it's the depression that takes control of giving me a reason for them to do that. It's the anxiety that builds inside of me that tells me I wasn't good enough. Even after my illness and suffering is known, a lot of people don't know how to respond. They don't know what to say or are afraid of saying the wrong thing. That silence is the worst. At this point, it feels like the silence has consumed me. Everything I was is gone, and the silence is the only thing that remains. It's a horrible sound and an even worse feeling. I just want someone to reach out. I want someone to try to understand me, and it feels like the longer I go without that, the harder it is to fight the silence. My challenge to you today is to finally break that silence. Scream if you have to. Get it out. Tell someone. I don't care if it's a friend, family member, or a therapist. Just make a step to end the silence for good. You're listening to Bill Myers Inspired right here on the Inspired Choices Network. We'll be right back.
Today, we are facing some of the greatest challenges of our lives, from our health to political unrest, the environment, financial uncertainty, and the nation's racial divide. Tune in every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Bill Myers Inspires, as he and his guests take a deep dive into the issues that impact our world with an eye to exploring solutions. Emmy Award-winning actor Bill Myers is an accomplished actor, jazz musician, filmmaker, writer, educator, and speaker. As a biracial man who's both black and white, Bill leverages his background, talents, and voice through creativity, compassion, and connection as activism for social justice to focus on uniting the divide and compelling change. Bill Myers Inspires encourages listeners to look within themselves and take decisive action to make a positive difference. For more information, visit his website, BillMyersInspires.com, and sign in for the latest news and updates.
You're listening to Bill Myers Inspires, here on the Inspired Choices Network. We're here every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for joining us. And now, let's get back to the conversation.
We're back. You're listening to Bill Myers Inspires. I am your host, Bill Myers. And today, we are dedicating this day to be all about silence. Silence. I want to take another spin at this very complex word, silence, and visit a few things here. So I want to visit it from a spiritual standpoint, a spiritual, positive standpoint. And so this comes to me from Psychic Central, or Psych Central is actually what it is, .com. And it begins with, silence is a source of great strength. That is a quote from Lao Tzu. Silence is a source of great strength. While some people dislike a silent environment, equating it with being alone and lonely, others look forward to spending time with just their thoughts, seeking silence with eagerness, as if anticipating a gift. Indeed, silence offers profound benefits, many of which we aren't even aware of. Silence is good for overall physical health and well-being. Besides giving our ears a break, silence has been shown to offer significant health advantages that boost overall well-being. From a physiological standpoint, silence helps lower blood pressure, which can help prevent heart attack, boost the body's immune system, benefit brain chemistry by growing new cells. A 2013 study found that 2 hours of silence could create new cells in the hippocampus region, a brain area linked to learning, remembering, and emotions. It also can decrease stress by lowering blood cortisol levels and adrenaline. Furthermore, according to a 2006 study in Heart, 2 minutes of silence relieves tension in the body and the brain and is more relaxing than listening to music. This was attributed to changes in blood pressure and blood circulation in the brain. It also promotes good hormone regulation and the interaction of bodily hormone-related systems. It also prevents plaque formation in the arteries. Lending credence to these observations, science now recognizes the harmful effects of noise pollution on human health and cognition. Silence promotes psychological and emotional benefits. Taking a break from difficulties at home, work, or school is often best accomplished with a conscious choice to entertain silence. Without the distraction of tech devices, ringing phones, incoming messages, unexpected assignments or chores, or the demands of children, coworkers, family members, and friends, it's easier to calm the mind and restore balance. Silence may help in the following areas. 1, creativity. When allowing thoughts to go where they will, inspiration may bubble up. Solutions to current or long-standing problems may suddenly occur to you. Or a workaround or an innovative approach may seem more feasible. Ideas for going in a different direction could coalesce, helping build momentum and excitement for spinning them off into yet other potential avenues to pursue. Awareness of self and environment. Once you're comfortable in silence, you'll notice a distinct shift in your ability to be more self-aware. In addition, you can better appreciate the world around you, including your immediate environment. Reflection. Silence permits the kind of reflection that is beyond mere introspection. No. It promotes the ability to connect threads in a seemingly disorganized, disconnected world. After meditating in silence, and after meditating in silence, you may be more motivated to mend significant relationships that have become strained, embark upon a self-improvement program, or pursue a more challenging career path, vow to adopt a healthier lifestyle. Sensitivity to flow of life force. As a living organism, becoming aware of your essence, your flow of life force is important to maximize your potential and impact on those closest to you. No one exists in a vacuum. We're all members of the same species. As such, our life force separates us from all other species. Insomnia. In 2015 study published in the Journal of American Medicine, Internal Medicine, older adults experiencing insomnia found relief in the form of improved sleep quality and less daytime impairment after undergoing a 6-week intervention of mindfulness meditation. Suggestions for entertaining silence. At a loss for effortless ways to get in the practice of entertaining silence? It isn't as difficult as you might think, and anyone can begin to cultivate silence to help benefit their overall health and well-being. Just try these suggestions. Invite a friend or walk outside in nature. Then make sure to walk at least part of the way in mutual silence. You can walk solo and get more in tune with nature and allow your mind to take a quiet time out. Or you could remain in bed an extra 5 minutes before getting up for the day. Use this time to slowly awaken to the world, basking in the silence of the sleeping quarters and letting your thoughts wash over you. Say a silent prayer of gratitude for all that you have and ask for blessings for the day ahead. Engage in deep breathing exercises. This helps calm your mind and quiet it at the same time. Or, of course, meditate. This practice can be whatever you want it to be, from simple to more intricate. Teach yourself or join a class, whatever works for you, to get in the habit of silently witnessing your thoughts. You're listening to Bill Myers Inspires. We're talking about silence today. We'll be right back in just a moment.
Today, we are facing some of the greatest challenges of our lives, from our health to political unrest, the environment, financial uncertainty, and the nation's racial divide. Tune in every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Bill Myers Inspires, as he and his guests take a deep dive into the issues that impact our world with an eye to exploring solutions. Emmy Award-winning actor Bill Myers is an accomplished actor, jazz musician, filmmaker, writer, educator, and speaker. As a biracial man who's both black and white, Bill leverages his background, talent, and voice through creativity, compassion, and connection as activism for social justice to focus on uniting the divide and compelling change. Bill Myers Inspires encourages listeners to look within themselves and take decisive action to make a positive difference. For more information, visit his website, BillMyersInspires.com, and sign in for the latest news and updates.
You're listening to Bill Myers Inspires. here on the Inspired Choices Network. We're here every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for joining us. And now, let's get back to the conversation.
We're back. You are listening to Bill Myers Inspires. I am your host, Bill Myers, and we are discussing silence and all that that word can mean, and all the different ways that it manifests, both in a good way and a bad way. So I want to talk about relationships very quickly, and then I want to complete the story that I started at the very beginning to share with you my experience on Wednesday. So I want to talk about 4 types of silence that are bad for you and your relationships. So communication is something I personally think millennials have gotten really bad at. So we communicate through our devices and over social media more than we talk in person. So when we do talk in person, we often struggle with grasping the feelings behind certain types of verbal and nonverbal communication. One of the most misinterpreted is silence. Most relationships have moments of silence, but silence isn't a bad thing. It happens. Sometimes one or both partners are busy or tired or just don't feel like talking, and that's completely okay. It is often said that a healthy relationship will have plenty of comfortable silences. Now, just because you are with your partner doesn't mean you need to be talking 24/7, and you can enjoy each other's company without even saying a word. Sometimes it's nice to just sit there quietly and share the space and listen to music together or read or whatever you choose to do besides talk. That being said, some types of silence can be signals for deeper issues. Below are 4 types of silences that most commonly have a negative impact on relationships. Just because you experience one of these quiet lulls doesn't mean that the relationship is canned and doesn't mean you necessarily have to go suffer. But it's worth opening up to your partner and taking note of these things about what silence really means. So, number 1, you give each other the silent treatment. Now, you fought and you're still mad, so you're not going to talk. And you think that by avoiding the other person and avoiding the situation, it will either blow over or it will make things better, and it won't. A psychotherapist specializing in sexual abuse and other related topics, previously told Elite Daily that expressing yourself to your partner, especially when there's conflict, is crucial. Partners need to communicate, she said. When something is wrong, they need to discuss and not be afraid that the confrontation to the problem will end up in a blowout. The silent treatment is never a good thing. This type of silence makes your partner wonder, causes confusion, and stretches out a negative circumstance. So you're not only punishing your partner by giving them the silent treatment, you are punishing yourself. Say what you need to say, and if you have nothing else to say, at least you said that much. Don't make your partner beg you to speak to them, and don't fuel the anxiety that already exists when a couple is at odds. Just speak. Hopefully, you and your partner will come to common ground, and you will at least have heard your feelings. The silent treatment never solves anything. 2, there's nothing left to say. This type of silence can spell the end of a relationship. When you get home from work and you sit down for dinner and the two of you have nothing to say to one another, that can be a sign that you've lost your spark. Priscilla Martinez, a life coach, previously told Elite Daily that communication is key to any relationship in order to ensure both partners are moving in the same direction in terms of commitment. Communication is so important in a relationship. So you're both shutting down. These are times in a disagreement where nothing is getting accomplished. No common ground exists, and you've reached the point where you're beating a dead horse. This is the point when you retreat. You shut down and you close off. You start to agree with them just to shut them up and just to completely go cold altogether. This is the point where you are not at all open to continuing the conversation, and that's okay, but you need to express that properly. Let your partner know that you need some time to consider what they've said, so tell them you need a moment to soak it all in. If they are reasonable, they'll understand and allow you to have it. Just don't shut down without saying something. You're not responding to text messages for an extended amount of time. It's normal if you're not able to keep bantering over text while you're at work, studying in the library, or working out, or otherwise occupied. Ahead of those times, you might even shoot off a quick text that says, hey, I'll be unreachable for the next few hours, but I'll respond to your messages when I'm free. Easy. But if you get an incoming text from your partner and simply have no desire to write back, your silence might speak volumes. Silence is the most misunderstood and misinterpreted type of human interaction, and it's easy to understand and accept if we communicate ahead of time. So that is yet, some sort of warning signs that relates to silence. So let me tell you what happened to me on Wednesday afternoon. I, out of the clear blue, was struck in a way that I felt something I had never felt before, which was a huge weight was sitting on me. I was unable to move. I was unable to speak. I was driven to silence. And I felt horrible, and for no apparent reason. And that silence, I realized that I had my toe in a pool that I had heard other people describe that they had been swimming in, particularly as it relates to all the stress and all the things going on in this wild America that I happen to live in, from the political stuff. But it was that weight of that racism that seemed to be pervasive. And let me tell you, after the George Floyd thing, and we've got this huge momentum in this coming self-awareness as a nation to reconcile Black Lives Matter and to try to make a difference for the first time after 400 years of not doing so. The tremendous weight that black citizens have been carrying for 400 years. I believe that I experienced just the tip. My toe dipped into the tip of it. And I realized that if I wasn't careful, I was going to slide into something without completely understanding it. And so I just attempted to breathe and sit in that silence, and I became so uncomfortable because it just seemed like I was sinking further and further. And so, as we're talking about race, I want to be very clear that this is very serious stuff. It's very serious. So I want to share with you a piece. I go back to my guru and my hero, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., for guidance here. And I realized that during an important speech that he had given on April 4th of 1967, exactly 1 year before he was assassinated, he gave a powerful speech at Riverside Church in New York. He began by criticizing U.S. policy in Vietnam, but then his critique of the nation and its public policies went much deeper. The war in Vietnam is but a symptom of a far deeper malady within the American spirit. He called for the nation to rapidly shift from a thing-oriented society to a person-oriented society. When profit motives and property rights are considered more important than people, the giant triplets of racism, materialism, and militarism are incapable of being conquered. He called for a radical revolution of values and a restructuring of society. True compassion is more than flinging a coin to a beggar. It is not a haphazard event or superficial. It comes to see that an edifice which produces beggars needs restructuring. In the nearly 50 years that have passed since King's speech, conditions have worsened. Military spending, adjusted for inflation, is now higher than ever. Wealth and income inequality differences between the rich and everyone else has widened. Racial bias and structural racism continue to kill and stunt the lives of people of color. I realized that after George Floyd and the whole idea of the nation addressing the shooting of unarmed black people, that I have not really seen that activity slow down. In fact, I feel like I am watching some new, very strange version of what used to be the ABC movie of the week. It was like I'm watching and I see this young man in Kenosha getting shot 7 times in the back, and again, we're watching the whole thing unfold, and I'm going, my God, what is happening here? But yet and still, we're watching this, and almost on a weekly basis. Then we have the 17-year-old that comes up and decides to sport and be a hero and help and be a militiaman and help clean up the streets and bring law and order to these streets, as he shoots 3 people, killing 2, as the police hand him a bottle of water and basically thank him for his concern and his service. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what silenced me, is the idea that we could become desensitized to the seeing of this new version of a television show or something. And it isn't. We are watching and witnessing some accepted version of man's inhumanity to man on one of the highest levels I have ever seen. As I watched the 17-year-old shooter, the killer of these 2 people and injuring the 3rd, walking through the streets with this assault rifle, I couldn't help but think that if a black man walked out on that street at any moment holding an assault rifle in his hands, how we would not even be able to count the number of bullets that would have been shot into that individual. Yet, I'm watching this white kid, 17 years old, doing some sort of civil duty and receiving his bottle of water and pat on the head for a fine job from the police themselves. I'm the son of a police officer. My father served on the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department for 54 years. And I have never, ever seen anything like we are witnessing today. And let me tell you, it is enough to take you to utter silence. Heartbreaking is not enough. It's soul-killing is what it is. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for sharing this journey as we discuss this word silence. I apologize for taking us down this path, but I wanted to take you on this journey with me so that you could sort of walk alongside me as I discover what silence is. I thank you for listening. You've been listening to Bill Myers Inspires right here on the Inspired Choices Network.
Thank you for spending your afternoon right here with us at Bill Myers Inspires. Remember, we're here every Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Inspired Choices Network. Remember to take time this week to take a breath and look within yourself and figure out how you can make a positive difference in this world. Spread the word